Finally, here's the complete formula of how you can reach 2000 ELO on chess.com, or who knows, even more. At least by the end of the video, your level is definitely going to increase by 100%. Here are some basic points that, if you remember, even a complete noob just like you can reach 2000 ELO on chess.com. I'm going to play some rapid games online and going to use and implement these exact same points and simply going to win these games to show you how you can reach 2000 ELO on chess.com. It's a foolproof video. I hope that it helps you. So let's get started. Okay, so here we go. The round number 1. It's a rapid game. I'm having 1996 rating. It's a 10 minutes game without any zero increment. Okay, so first point, control the center. Here we go. I'm a 1d4 player. I like to play the move 1d4. I'm controlling the center. Makes sense. Second point, develop your minor pieces. Okay, now generally I go for playing the move Queen's Gambit, but for the sake of this video, I'll just develop my knight. Going for the second point, which is develop your pieces. Here we go, knight to f6. Okay, now I can develop my bishop. The bishop goes to f4. Obviously, I could have put the bishop on g5, but bishop f4 looks good. It controls more squares. That makes sense. And bishop to g4. Okay, so now I can develop my knight. But I'll just first make sure to push the pawn, because I'm already kind of controlling the center. And yeah. And now bishop simply took the knight. I'll just capture it with the queen. Don't ask me why, because obviously if I just capture with the pawn, I ruin up my pawn structure. Here we go, e6. Now I want to develop my piece, my minor piece, the knight or the bishop. Okay, I want to put my knight on c3, but the c2 pawn would be a bit backward. So I'll first instead decide to develop my knight on e2. Makes sense, just developing my knight. Okay, here we go. I'm expecting my opponent to play the move bishop maybe. Just talking about what's my idea, how I want to continue the possession. And now we have the move bishop to d6. Now that's a very interesting point that I wrote in my full bulletproof way to reach 2000 ELO, which is, which is only take if you are losing material or kind of forced, winning material or positionally benefit. So all the three scenarios are not really working to capture the bishop, so I'm not really going to take the bishop. I'm just going to focus on developing my bishop. The question is on which square. I'm going to put the bishop on d3. Why? Because the bishop controls more squares. And now it's a question. Shall I take with the pawn or with the queen? Both the moves looks very interesting. Okay, I can definitely take it with the queen. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, but taking with the pawn is absolutely fine, because if I would have taken with the pawn, I could have simply put the pawn on c3 and my knight on e5. But that's a bit too much for beginners. So I'll just take back with the queen, knight d7. And now coming to the third point, which is castle. I'll castle up. Here we go. You see, already the opening phase has been completed. I did nothing special, just playing some normal chess. And now coming to the fourth point, which is protect the back rank. I'm going to do it. h3. Just h3, doing absolutely nothing. Here we go, c6. And now as the back rank has been protected now, so now going to the fifth point, which is develop the rooks, which I can, but it says develop the rooks depending upon the pawn structure. First I need to construct the pawn structure. So, and the sixth point, which says play the side where you are stronger, or just play in the center. In this position, we are not really stronger in either of the sides, so I'll just play in the center, which is c4. I'm pushing my side pawn to attack in the center, which makes sense. Yeah, the pawn is protected by the bishop and the knight. It makes sense. And now, as I know, after c4, maybe I can take the c file is going to get opened up. So I can put my rook on c1, which is an idea. But after rook e8, we must know, we must always consider our opponent's idea. That's a must. Okay, so in this position, knight f3 makes sense. Just chopping opponent from playing the move e5. But let's leave it. I'm going to play the move rook to d1. Why? Because I'm just developing my rook, attacking the queen. And here we go. pawn push. Now I can move the queen, but if I just try to move the queen, maybe he can capture the pawn. So I'll just capture the pawn. Why? Because I'm just opening up the rook. That makes sense. So I'll just took it. And here we go. Knight took the pawn on e5. Makes sense. And now the bishop is hanging. So now there are two ways to continue the position. Either I can just move my bishop, or I can move my knight to protect the bishop. Both the moves looks fairly fine. The question is, how shall I play? How shall I continue the position? A good move that looks to me is maybe knight f3. But after knight d3, rook d3, rook e5, rook e4, maybe I'm just losing a pawn, so I'll just not go for that instead. Maybe I can just play bishop e2. That makes sense. I'm just moving the bishop back, opening up my rook. You see, doing nothing crazy, just simple chess. My piece was hanging, so I simply took it back. Yeah. Here we go, knight g6, the queen is attacked. The queen is attacked, so I'll just pull my queen back. The question is at which square, as there are many squares available. I can play queen d4, which makes sense, but then I'm just kind of allowing my opponent. Okay, he can't really go knight rook e4 because I can take, but maybe he can take the pawn, which I'm not really a big fan of. So maybe queen f3 looks good, or even queen g3 looks good. Now there are many tempting squares that I can go on. The question is which square. I believe I'll just play queen d4. If you ask me why queen d4, I'm just kind of centralizing my pieces. You see, opponent took the pawn, and now you should always try to go forward with your pieces. So I'm simply going to capture the pawn with the knight. I'm protecting my queen with the rook. My knight is well centralized. I'll just take back with the rook. Of course, if I would have taken with the pawn, I'm losing the bishop. Okay, here we goes. Rook d8. Once again, shall I take? Only take if you're kind of forced, if you are winning material, or is it positionally better? All the three scenarios are not really working up in this position, so I'll just get my final piece into the game, which is the last rook, the rook on d1. I'll just capture it back with the rook, and yeah, the opponent is still having 8.5 minutes on his clock, and I'm just having 4 minutes 40 seconds. Okay, once again, the position is absolutely equalish. The question is how to play the endgame now. We are kind of in the middle game and the end game. We have knight goes to d5. Now, I need to use my brain in order to win, which makes sense. Now, bishop f3 looks good. If you ask me why, I'm kind of just attacking the knight. If he takes it back, I'll just capture it, and I'm just a pawn up. My bishop is nicely placed, putting some pressure on the pawns, which is going to work in the long run. I'll show you how, but yeah, for now that's it. Bishop f3 makes sense. Just improving my pieces. Whenever you're playing the end game, use your king. As I said, it's not the complete end game, it's a mid of the middle game and the end game. And play aggressively, no defense. You see, we are playing aggressively, we are trying to develop our pieces. Okay, now here we have it. Knight goes back to f6. Now I can just play the move for knight to d6, attacking the rook. The rook will move to attack the pawn, to protect the pawn. And then I have to think. Instead, I'm just going to play the move a4. If you ask me why did I play the move a4? You see, in order to win, you have to create a weakness in your opponent's camp. In this position, the position was absolutely equal. So I decided to play the move a4. If you ask me what's my idea, I will say my idea is to play the move a5. And now, what's my idea once again? I want to push my pawn to a6 to create a weakness. We have knight goes to e5. And now, I'll think. Okay, let's see. The bishop, the knight wants to capture the bishop. And I don't really want my opponent to really capture the bishop. So I'll just capture the knight instead. You see, simple logic. Rook takes back the knight, and now I can play the move b4 just to protect the pawn. That makes sense. I can also push my pawn to a6, which also makes sense. If he takes it back, I'll just capture the pawn on c6 with my bishop. It looks good. I can also play b4 though. But I believe a6 looks good, because even if it takes, he's just having double pawns. That does look good. And now we have the move rook to b5, which attacks the pawn and also protects the pawn. That's actually a very good move. Okay. So maybe I'll just capture the pawn in this position, expecting my opponent to capture the pawn back. And now it's time to think. I can protect the pawn with b4, which does make sense. Yeah, I'll just push the pawn. I'm protecting my pawn with the rook. I'm attacking his pawn on c6 with the bishop. Both the moves make sense. The rook goes to b6. And now the question is, once again, how to continue. I can push my pawn in the center, which does make sense, and I'll just do it. Yeah, I'll just do it. I want to push my pawn to e5, attack the knight. You see, I'm just playing, I'm trying to play aggressively. I'm not trying to go defensive. I'm just trying to play aggressive chess. The king goes to f8, and now I'll just try to push the pawn once again. Just push the pawn. Keep the pawn pushing. Yeah. And now the knight goes back, and I can play the move rook over here and just attack this guy. Attack the weak guy. Try to win the pawn, and eventually try out to grind the endgame. You see, play aggressively, use your king, and that's how you win. Okay, so now it's a moment. It's a golden moment for me to capture the pawn with the rook or with the bishop. If you're a beginner, you can go for capturing with the rook. But I believe I'm kind of an expert, so I'll just try to capture with the bishop and try to grind out this endgame. Because maximum pieces you keep on the board, maximum chances you are having to win the game. I'll push my pawn f4, trying to play aggressively. And now finally, maybe it's time to get my king. Finally, it's time to get my king, so I'll just use my king. The king goes over here. No idea. I'll just try to get my king. Every square is kind of covered up, so there is no need to worry. I'll just take, because that's kind of force. And now I can give a check. That's a check. Kind of forcing the opponent to go back. And now maybe I can just come forward with my king. I'm a pawn up. Remember, I'm a pawn up. There's no need to get afraid. I can just keep on playing some good move. And now it's time to go g4 with the idea of f5, rolling down the pawns, trying my best to make his king go passive. I'll just capture it back. The king goes back, and I can even push the move, make the move f6 check. If the king comes forward, that's a mate. The king goes to the last rank. So now I'm really having a good chance to win this game. Maybe the best move should be to activate my king. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. I kind of sack the pawn maybe? I don't know. Now maybe, okay, let's think how can I win the game? Maybe I can just try to advance the king maybe? Or maybe I can just use my king to capture this pawn. That also sounds like a good idea to me. Let's see. Maybe if the rook goes over here, we are maybe having some chances. Okay, I'll just move my king, protecting the pawn with the idea of using my rook maybe to attack his pawn. I'll take this, as he can't really take because that's a mate. So we'll go over here. Okay, maybe the king can come, but I'll just attack the rook. Okay, I'll attack the rook once again. Okay, I can use this idea, give a check, and maybe here. And I'm not really 100% sure if that's working. So I'll just go over here. I'll give a check. I'll go over here, capture this pawn. Maybe I should have gone rook over here, but that's fine. Okay, now I'm just winning a pawn once again. That's a check. And now this is winning. That's for sure, because now I'm just having a side pawn. I can just push the pawn and win the game. Push. Keep the pawn pushing. The king is eventually going to get to the edge of the board. And we are still going to win the game. Anyhow. Opponent is still having 6 minutes, by the way, on his clock, though it's a completely losing position. I'll show you how. Now I just need to move the king, get the rook, and just make a queen. That's it. That's a GG. You see, endgame is a part where you need to have some skill in order to convert the game, a drawish game, into a win. But that, you see, I played nothing absolutely insane. I played absolutely simple chess. If you want, I can just give you a complete overview of the game. Let's use the engine. Okay, so that maybe if you're a complete noob, maybe you can use, you can watch the bar at least. I control the center. I'm developing my pieces. Third step is to castle up, which I did. I castled up. Fourth step is to kind of protect the back rank, which I did with the move h3, which makes sense. And now fifth plan is to develop the rooks depending upon the pawn structure. Currently, we are not really having any pawn structure. If you're not really having any pawn structure, you can simply play in the center, which I exactly did by playing the move c4. Now, you see, there is an idea of me playing on the queen side. Why? Because kind of the pawn structure already tells you how you can play, like on which side do you need to play. In this position, the pawn structure aims towards queen side, so it's already a hint that you need to play on the queen side. That's exactly what I did. c4. The rook goes over here, and now the next point says only take if you are losing material, winning material, or positional benefit, which we are doing all along. And yeah, okay, I used my rook to d1. That whenever like my opponent's idea is to play the move e5. That's the reason he played the move rook e8. I'm like, okay, fine, you can play the move e5, but now the rook on d1 is doing a great job. The bishop goes back. I've used my queen, centralizing my pieces. You see, always try to centralize your pieces, because if any of your piece is nicely centralized in any of the 4 squares, basically, what does centralizing piece means? Like, why we centralize pieces? Because if you centralize any piece, you can say it has the 4 squares have the superpower to make your piece even more stronger if it enters in any of the 4 squares. You see, that's the whole logic, because it can control many squares. If the piece would be in the center. If takes, the rook comes, and now there is no need to take. I can just get the rook. That makes sense. Takes, knight goes over here, and now I seem to try to improve my bishop. That makes sense. The knight goes back, and now e4 is a move which requires a bit of an experience, though it is not a move that Engine particularly likes. Engine likes another move which I'm not really sure of. Maybe knight a5, attacking the pawn on b7 and c6, and that's absolutely right. I'm actually winning a pawn, because if he just pushes the b pawn, he loses the c pawn, and even if he just tries to protect the b pawn, I can just play rook b4, and I'm still anyways winning a pawn. Though I missed it, I admit. I played the move a4. My idea is to push the pawn eventually, make a weakness, and eventually win the pawn. You see, I'm trying to open up this diagonal for my bishop. Currently, the bishop is kind of limited. I want to somehow remove the b pawn. How shall I do it? I need to use my a pawn to give it as a bait, and then I can use my bishop's full capacity or full power. a5, knight goes over here. I decide to take the knight, and now a6. Rook b5 was a good move, maybe. Though after takes, b4, e4, e5. e4, e5, I believe, was a very nice idea. Rook over here. Okay, because why e4, e5? Because I wanted to play this move, but now he's having knight d5, attacking the pawn, and this is a drawish endgame. So that's why first e4, now e5 makes sense. Rook goes over here. I won the pawn, and despite Engine saying that it's a draw position, it's very hard to do so. f4, king f2. I just used my king. I traded off bishop for the knight. Eventually, I cornered the black king, activated my rook, I activated my king, I captured a pawn, and eventually with some grinding technique or experience, whatever you can call it, and eventually I was able to convert this game. This was just a formality for me, and that's it. That's GG. You see, I did nothing special. I played absolutely no-brainer chess, following these simple fundamentals. Here it is, and that's it. That's how you do it. This thing works. And yeah, that's it. I hope that this will help you improve your game. If it will, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I hope that it helps. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.